Thanks so much, and thanks to the Springfield Public Library and the sponsors for holding this event this evening. So why is it important to tax and regulate marijuana in Massachusetts? Marijuana prohibition has been an abject failure in controlling marijuana use. There are between 800,000 and 1 million people in Massachusetts that use marijuana on a regular basis. And they are being forced to buy marijuana from a criminal market, and the products are untested. They could have heavy metals, pesticides. There was a gentleman who was arrested in Brockton a couple of weeks ago that was selling marijuana that was spiked with fentanyl, which is a powerful opiate. So what we need to do is take that commerce out of the criminal market and put it in a regulated market that pays taxes, that creates jobs, and drives down youth access. Consistently over 20 years, high school seniors say that it's easy or fairly easy to get marijuana. Most of them say that it's more difficult to get alcohol than it is to get marijuana. And the reason is no one's asking them for their IDs. So we're just as interested as our opponents in making sure that underage folks don't use marijuana. So that's why there's a requirement in the initiative that says no sales to people under the age of 21. That's why there's a requirement in the initiative that says no advertising to people under the age of 21. And we're also just as interested as our opponents in making sure that impaired drivers stay off the roads. We don't care whether they're impaired by alcohol, marijuana, pills, or they haven't slept in 2.5 days. But there are drug recognition experts now that are able to identify folks who have been using marijuana who are impaired by marijuana from a roadside sobriety test, and we believe that by 2017 there will be devices that can be used by police officers to test for marijuana impairment. There was a study that was released by the American Civil Liberties Union of Massachusetts last week that said that if you are Black or Latino in Massachusetts, you're 3.3 times more likely to get arrested for a marijuana offense than if you're white, even though usage rates are relatively the same. You're more than 7 times likely to get arrested for a distribution offense if you're Black or Latino. So what we say is that Blacks and Latinos are getting arrested for selling marijuana to people who are not getting arrested for smoking it. Of course, we decriminalized marijuana by initiative in 2008. In 2012, we instituted medical marijuana, but 4 years later, in 2016, there are only 7 dispensaries open for medical marijuana. So we believe that this initiative will also allow many people who need marijuana for medicine to get it for medicine without the imposition of the Department of Public Health. There are a lot of folks who don't want to go on that Department of Public Health list because they might be veterans who have veterans benefits. They might be federal employees. They might be federal pensioners. They may have a firearms ID card, or they may be undocumented immigrants. For many reasons, they need marijuana for the medicine, but they don't want to go on the list. So this will allow folks to have marijuana for their medicinal purposes. It will establish a Cannabis Control Commission that will be responsible for regulating the cultivation, manufacture, testing, and retail sales of all marijuana and all marijuana products. We just believe that the yes on 4 makes so much sense that folks should absolutely vote yes on 4 in November.
Thank you, Will. Looks like we've got some questions. Oh, thank you. Okay. Lots of interest here. So first question to you and only you, Will, is why are so many police and law enforcement people against legalizing marijuana in our state?
You know, 80 years of propaganda is hard to shed. And you'd really have to ask the police and the law enforcement folks why they're against it. Maybe it's just because they're against change, but I actually think that it's because they're worried that the statistics that they have, that they compile every year about the number of arrests will go down, and that won't look good when voters come to vote for them the next time. So that's just my own personal opinion, but you'd honestly have to ask the police and law enforcement why they're against it. I think, they're a little bit concerned about the folks who might drive while they're impaired, but impaired driving in the other states that have implemented legalization has not gone up. It's stayed steady. And the Governor Hickenlooper from Colorado has said that folks who smoked before are smoking now, folks who didn't smoke before are not smoking now, and use rates across the board in every demographic except Andrew Friedman, who is the administrator of the marijuana program in Colorado. He said the only demographic that has showed an increase in use of marijuana between pre-legalization and post-legalization is folks over the age of 65.
Given how slow the state went on medical marijuana, how do we know how they will move any faster on this law?
Well, there are two ways. The first is that the initiative says that if the Cannabis Control Commission does not issue licenses by January of 2018, then medical marijuana facilities can begin to sell adult use marijuana. So that's what we call the nuclear option. But also, it's important to remember that this is legislation, albeit legislation, if it passed, that's passed by the voters rather than the legislature. But the legislature can change it at any time. So it's important for everyone who believes that this is the right thing to do to speak to their legislators after this passes, if it does, and we hope that it will, given the fact that you're all going to vote for it. Let your legislators know that you want this initiative protected and not changed in any major way.
Thank you. What guarantees are there to make sure that all the taxes on marijuana will actually go to schools, veteran services, et cetera, and not just go to the state's general fund?
Well, you can't fashion an initiative in Massachusetts that directs money at any particular program. And so the 6.25% sales tax that will be reaped by this commerce will go to the general fund, and it will be the responsibility of the legislature to decide what to do with that money. The 3.75% excise tax goes to the Marijuana Regulation Fund, which will fund the activities of the Cannabis Control Commission. And then there's also a 2% local option tax that the locality where a retail facility is located can benefit from that 2% tax. So bottom line is there's no way other than asking the legislature to make some sort of a earmarked fund for these monies so that they could go to specific activities that you've mentioned.
Why is the proposed tax vote on marijuana so much lower in states like Colorado?
It's lower than Colorado. Colorado actually lowered their tax a little bit. Oregon is lowering their tax significantly. I think the tax in Oregon now is about 35%. They're lowering it to 17%. But we felt that it was important to keep the tax as low as possible because that way you can significantly undercut the black market. And that's one of the main reasons why we've asked for this initiative, is to make sure that the criminal market is undercut, and one way to do that is to keep the tax low. There's also an escalator clause, or a tax adjustment clause, I should say, in the initiative that says that the Cannabis Control Commission on a yearly basis can recommend to the legislature changes in the tax structure. So it could go down or up.
So I support legalization. However, I look forward to the day where nobody carries a criminal record. record for possession. How does this question help the hundreds of thousands of individuals who currently have a record from a small possession charge from years ago?
And thanks for asking that. In 1970, I was a student activist. I was a hippie. And I think that perhaps because of my activism, I was arrested for possession of less than a quarter of an ounce of marijuana, which at the time in New York State was a Class A misdemeanor. I had some of you in the room are old enough to remember what a film canister looks like. I had a film canister half full of marijuana, and the police stuck their hand in my pocket in order to get it out, so it was an illegal search. But so the case was thrown out, but who knows how my career would have changed if I had had that arrest on my record. In Massachusetts also, you have to be very narrow in your purpose, and we had folks on the drafting committee who were interested in making sure that folks who had criminal records regarding marijuana would have their records expunged or somehow pardoned, and we decided that because it was imperative that we had a very narrow question, that we left that issue for the legislature to deal with after this happens. But I'm a very strong proponent in making sure that those criminal records are dissolved.
Thank you. What measures are to be taken to control availability of edibles and other sources of marijuana that could attract our young people to begin using some form of marijuana?
So there are currently in the DPH regulations requirements that say you can't manufacture or sell anything that looks anything like a commercially available candy. So the Cannabis Control Commission will work from that baseline. The folks in Colorado have been incrementally changing their regulations with regard to edibles. So just this month, October 1st, new regulations went into effect that said any edible has to have a distinctive marking on it that is a diamond with a exclamation point and the letters THC, and it has to be stamped on every portion of a marijuana edible. So this is to allow everyone, including parents, to direct their children to stay away from these kinds of edibles. We're just as, so there's a mandate in the initiative for child-proof packaging. So we're just as interested in making sure that edibles are controlled, but also, you know, there are a lot of folks who want to use smoke-free products. They would like to use marijuana as medicine or recreationally, and they don't want to smoke it. So edibles are an important part of that market, and we believe that we can make sure that all the edibles are marked distinctively so that parents will know not to leave them out. There's already, again, regulation in the DPH regulations that says that any marijuana product has to have large letters that say, keep out of reach of children. But we can't legislate parental responsibility. We have to make sure that parents understand that they need to keep all of their edibles under lock and key and protect their kids. And it's also important to remember there are a lot more poisonings from those little Tide containers that look like candy than there are from children ingesting marijuana.
And how do we know the safe level of THC in marijuana?
Colorado, in that October 1st, those October 1st regulations, has mandated that 10 milligrams of THC in any one portion is what's appropriate. Now, there are folks who need more than that THC for their medicine, but all the products will be labeled with their levels of THC and the levels of other active cannabinoids, so you will know what you're getting. And our opponents say, well, marijuana now is much stronger than it was when they used it. And that's probably true, but folks just will self-titrate, just like they do. You can buy 3.2 beer or you can buy 151 proof alcohol. People, we expect, will be able to responsibly use and know now what levels of THC and the other cannabinoids are in their products and use them responsibly.